Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Accountability Buddies podcast. I'm Jacob, and today I'm joined by
Duncan,
John,
and Zach.
And we are really excited to be here with you today. We've all had a big weekend, not the least of which is because what was it that happened this weekend? Did we get something shown off? Did people play any games? Was it no sense?
Doctor Strange 2 started this weekend.
Yeah.
No,
Just in case you weren't sure whether or not we're on the darkest timeline, you might be able to experience some media that will help inform you as to whether or not we are. We probably are, but you can still hold out hope that we're not.
hope is useless. Just go ahead and surrender.
Embrace the entropy that will consume us all. No, we're excited to be able to talk about the fact that people have actually gotten games in publicly in a way that they can talk about with our first taste of the new Heresy rules. We've had a lot of big reveals over this weekend, and we're all very excited to be able to look at some of them with you and talk about some of them. We've got parts of the packet that was used to play this weekend that we'll be going over. So a couple unit entries, some talk about what's changed, what's stayed the same, as well as looking at how that might influence the shape of the game.
It should be noted that we're actually recording this on 5/8 of 22. So literally one day after the big event reveal that gives all of us so much stuff to talk about.
With that in mind, gentlemen, do we want to do our normal hobby progress intro, or do we think we've got enough meat and potatoes on the plate already to just kind of get into it and power through on that subject?
I've worked on a lot of stuff.
Me too.
Well, let's go then. Don't be shy.
All right, so
After you, John. After you.
All right, so I have decaled the War Master, decaled the Warlord Sinister that Zach was nice enough to print me some very snazzy Warlord Sinister shoulder pads for. I've painted metallics on almost all of the epic infantry for the bases. I've gotten ready to prime base coat the other warlords and reavers. I got all the warhounds decaled for my AT stuff. And then I played at an AT event where I found out that it's very important to read the lance rules for knight houses if you're going to try to play knights. And then try to find the latest FAQs for the Porphyrins, because they changed how they get taken in night houses. So needless to say, I was playing a little over points and I was playing a little illegal list. But I did win my games, so there's that. I found out I can win Titanicus if I just cheat heavily. That's a good way I can do it.
Now I know how I can win in Heresy.
The important first step is winning. Wait, no, we're not that kind of show.
Yeah, no, it's if you play 400 points over in your first game, as well as taking the illegal list, that might be a sign. And then your second game, you go, okay, my bad, I'll fix it. And then you're like, okay, I'm only 300 points over this time, but I think this list is at least legal. And then you still win, and you have to question your life choices after that. That was what I did on Friday.
I think the fact that you're admitting it and questioning it puts you in a different category than some players. So.
You haven't gone to become a fully whack player yet.
Right, and I know. And I think one of the guys that listens to us was actually my opponent, so I apologize to both Parker and Rob for that. But those are local DOS guys. We're doing a lot of AT stuff since 2.0 is still a couple of months away, probably, and more so if you're not going to play Marines, which we found out in the packets that we're going to talk about today. But I'll go ahead and pass it on to Duncan as I sit here and paint.
Say before we jump off, if you've not been following the updates that John's been posting on our various social medias, or follow John on his social medias, the work you're doing with the decals, and I forget who pointed out in one of the chats, but the how you've made the symbols on the various Titans different but identical, I guess, or different but similar, so they all look almost the same, but you can tell the difference between each of the knights, and just all the hazard stripes decals and the work you're doing on cutting those up to make them fit and work and everything. It's coming out really, really nicely, and doing a really good job on all that kind of stuff. They're looking really
I
good.
appreciate it. Yeah, it's I did have some trouble with the decals that I thought I'd bought were going to be in scale. They were in scale, but they were so tiny and so expensive that it was going to cost almost triple the cost of the knights or the warhounds themselves to decal them. So I ended up having to print my own 0.8 millimeters by 0.8 millimeter stripes and then cut them up into little pieces and put those on the panels for all the warhounds to go. But like you said, they're moving past. I enjoy working on them. It's nice.
Definitely worth the effort. So
Thank
If
you.
only you weren't working on an illegal list.
Well, the nights that I played were the ones that I finished 2 years ago before lockdown when I worked on the militia to get it ready for Adepticon, and then Adepticon didn't happen. So to punish myself for getting everything done in time, I decided to start up a whole new night list and did all of those nights. I think it's something like 45 plastic nights for AT. I finished up, and then I just ordered some more for the Devil or the new Warhound variant that's coming out. I got parts for that. And then Battle Bling just dropped upgrade sprues for the Porphyrin the conversion beamer version.
Oh, nice, nice.
So I don't have to buy the Forge World ones that are something like $50-$60 a piece. Instead, I can buy a Porphyrin kit, which is $60, and then these upgrade arms, which are like 10 or 15. So it's nearly cutting the cost in half. So I can field, since I am an OCD completionist, I like to be able to field everything, which is why I have to keep talking about painting so many Warhounds and so many Warlords and everything else, because I want to be able to form every maniple.
cool.
I dig this.
At the same time.
Well, if I want to be able to teach, so that's the other thing is I like the reason we started this podcast is because we want to be able to welcome people into the hobby, and so if I go to an event and I know that someone's going to be there that hasn't played before, I can play the 5 Reaver maniple, and you could play the 4 Warlord maniple. So it's a great way for us to break things apart that way, and then be able to see the other things throughout those lists to make people let people in.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, a buddy of mine has given me his Grandmaster set for Titanicus, so I've been putting together 2 Warlords, 2 Warhounds, and 2 Reavers right now. So now that school is over until August, I can focus on hobbying full time.
At least
Yeah,
for a while.
there's a lot of, and I'll send you links since you've got a working 3D printer for a lot of the gun arms that you're missing for some of the warlords and stuff like that. Especially the Volkites and the Gatling blasters on the shoulders are really really good. If you're going to be doing warlord versus warlord fights, because just 2 volcano cannons tagging each other back and forth is just going to be a silly game until one of you accidentally pops off. So there's a couple upgrades STLs out there from Grimdark Terrain and from Battle Bling and stuff like that you can get out there that are fairly cheap for those that are 3D printer inclined. I'm more of I would rather spend my time painting and building and priming than I would troubleshooting a piece of machinery.
My machines I ended up getting mostly because I wanted to print some really interesting terrain that had come out. And I have another plan for my PLA printer that is not gaming related in any way, shape, or form. So I just haven't. I got to fix that thing. It's been causing problems and failing and leaking filament out of the head. Pretty much, I'll get like 3 prints out of it, and then the 4th one or halfway through the 3rd one, it fails, and then I have to go back and rework on everything. And I'm not really particularly enjoying that part of it. But
You're sounding exactly the reasons I didn't want them.
I ended up getting a cheaper version of the was it Ender 2 or Ender 3? I can't remember which one it is.
3.
But it's a Voxelab. It's a Voxelab Aquila, and I looked at a couple videos of people who had gotten them and said, yeah, it's a really great printer for beginner and everything else, and things given me no end of trouble, and I'm sick of the thing, and which sucks because I have a lot of really cool plans that I want to use the thing for. I just can't get to operate for any period of extended time.
Yeah, I hear that. But that's everything I've been up to. I appreciate y'all giving me compliments and calling me the hobby machine.
You truly are.
You are.
You truly are. Well, my stuff's going to sound a little bit lame in comparison to John's, but I've built a Fellblade. I'm in the process of painting a Fellblade. I'm putting decals on said Fellblade right now, actually, before I begin my weathering. So that's where I am. The end.
You're doing really good on that. like surprisingly well. I will say that you've come a long way, Duncan, since you joined the chat, and that I really like what you've done with it and how it's going.
Thank you, sir. I'm actually really proud of how this is working out so far.
I'm impressed that you put the thing together because I had to farm mine out. I just had so many problems with it. I'm just like, you know what? Nope, sorry.
What
I had another-
nobody knows is that I have no fingerprints from all the super glue burns anymore.
Yeah, no, I
Nowadays,
had,
half the time I'm trimming resin, I pre-super glue my fingers just so I don't cut my hands.
That's actually reasonable, but I didn't actually have to do a lot of resin trimming because I have a saw and I wasn't doing trimming, I was doing sawing. And I'm going to use that very specifically because some of the gating on this thing was a nightmare.
So I've done some. I guess you're done, right, Duncan?
Oh yeah, all done.
So I've done some GW-ish hobbying, not heresy, but I have continued to put paint on my Wood Elf Blood Bowl team. Did some freehanding of numbers and a flower symbol on the back because they're Wood Elves and why not? And continued to print my 3D dungeon tiles in the for the Dungeon Bowl. So I'm scaling them up to be the scale to match the Dungeon Bowl tiles. So when I'm done, I will be able to have a fully 3D printed, textured Dungeon Bowl layout. So, and I got the actual Creality Ender 3 version 2, which is the latest and greatest upgraded version of it. And I have been really happy with the way it works for terrain. I know the episode that we recorded, we didn't air. We talked about some of the Adepticon stuff, but I printed out a bunch of stuff for 2 tables that I was really happy with. I've still got some painting to do on the craft spaceship. It worked really well. I was just printing for the 4 or 5 months leading up to Adepticon, and had a bunch of really cool looking stuff I thought that came out of that. So
taking that page out of Ryan's book, just leaving the tiny robotic sweatshop running at all hours.
Pretty much. I've got it set up with a Raspberry Pi system running it, and so I get notifications when it's all done, and clear the bed and have another print lined up and just rip it up ready to run another print.
Yeah, your Crash Spaceship definitely made me a little bit jealous for missing Adepticon this year.
Yeah, still needs to be weathered up a little bit, but we'll get to that. But it, as far as I'm really happy with how it came out and looked, definitely nice. So that's what I had.
Very exciting. You guys have had a busy week.
Did you do anything, Jake?
I unfortunately ended up. We had a new game store open in town here in the last week, and so I had a number of friends who kind of invaded my hobby time, saying, "Hey, do you want to go try a game at the new store?" Well, I thought I had things that I wanted to do in my life, but sure, we can do that. And when 3 or 4 of your days in a week get eaten like that, it's just a little tricky, to be able to find the time for everything you wish you had.
Well, gaming is part of this as well, so what did you do?
So let's see here. Tuesday night, I actually took one of my favorite board games over, the Red Dragon Inn. Well, I say board game, it's kind of a card game. Had a number of people who had never played it before, and it is a competitive card game, or player versus player, however you want to say that, that is themed to what do the adventurers do after a long day of adventuring in D&D. Well, they probably go back to the tavern, and they probably drink and gamble and fight a little to let out any aggression of, you almost hit me with that fireball earlier today. I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you for that yet. And so I've been assembling and collecting this game and all the expansions for it over about the last decade or so. And they're up to, and I think possibly over 100 characters now. Relatively...
I don't know if you can see the shelf behind me, but I don't have as much as you do. But I have 3 of the main boxes and a few of the characters that go along with it as well.
Yeah, it's a really fun game, and it's if you have looked at something like, say, Magic the Gathering, and you're like, but the investment, I don't know if I'm in for that. You can get a lot of the same sort of concepts in this without having to go all the way to that level of investment and building decks and things like that. And balance overall is pretty tight, which is exciting.
And it plays a beer and pretzel game, right? I mean, it's not, Magic can get really, really competitive depending on who you're playing.
Yeah,
with.
no, the interactions here, again, because balance is relatively tight and because there's typically a very well monitored and constrained resource economy that each player gets to work with. It's more about the choices you make about trying to play politics at the table, who hit you, who do you want to hit. If you're getting low on stats, how do you want to try to fight your way back into the game? How do you make yourself appear less threatening? Or how do you make yourself a less appealing target to get kicked out? And so there's some social deception elements to it in that regard, which is cool. It means you've got a reasonable amount of player agency without having to get super duper complex or intricate interactions.
Well, and we play a lot of 3-person with my wife, my son, and I, and a comparable game you might say is Munchkin, but Munchkin very much turns into a Kingmaker game, and if one person decides to go after one person at the extent of the other, or just time something wrong with a play against one person, you pretty much get in a situation where two people are going after each other and the other person is going to win. And Red Dragon Inn doesn't get near.
It's a lot harder to do that. And my experience with Red Dragon has been that, like, I tend to bring it out at parties because it's a game that tends to scale up just fine. And so I can and have spent most of my time playing the game, probably playing 6 or 8 players at a time. And it's cool to see something that plays all the way down at 3 players and plays all the way up at 8 players. And something like Munchkin, you've also got a little more of an impact of chaos than what Red Dragon has. Yep. Wednesday night, we ended up playing Clank in Space. Clank, for those of you who are unaware, is kind of a hybrid dungeon crawling deck builder. And so Clank in Space takes that and takes all the lessons they learned over the life cycle of the original release of Clank and puts it in a sci-fi setting. And it's got a great sense of humor, very similar to like Munchkin, but maybe a little more refined, maybe a little less crude or lowbrow, the way Munchkin can be. That's not to say I dislike Munchkin. I think it's a lot of fun, but Clank then is very similar to, if you've played the deck builders I always reference in the genre are going to be like Dominion, or the other one that a lot of people will know is Ascension. You build the deck, you draw your cards, you play the cards. Clank just adds an element of quasi-cooperative interactions. There's some notes to it that if you've played games like Betrayal at House on the Hill or Shadows over Camelot, where everybody's mostly working together up until there's kind of an inflection point in the game, and then suddenly nobody's working together, and you're all in a desperate scramble to earn as many points as possible and try to survive the ordeal. And then, finally, Thursday saw me at the shop for my Battletech Escalation League. This was our first 500-point game, so we started at 250 points back in January, and we have now made it all the way up to 500 points. And that's been part of the impetus for me getting Clan Wolf painted up. So, for those of you familiar with the setting, my opponent was playing Word of Blake and had a lot of C3 gear, which is like a networked series of targeting computers, which conditionally can be extremely powerful.
I hope you lost.
Oh yeah. We can't let the Wobblies live. They might think they're people.
I was referring just to the fact that you're playing clanners.
Oh no, I lived. I won. Or are you saying you wanted the clans to win?
No, I don't want the clans to win. Speaking as an Inner Sphere dedicated player, I'd never want clanners.
See, it's interesting for BattleTech. I found a clan that I like, and I found a great house that I like, and I don't have quite the same like why would I ever play Loyalist that I have with Heresy. That's not to say I won't ever play Loyalist, but why would I?
That's a reasonable statement. My issue for it is I just don't like the clanners. You know, they ran away, didn't stay and work out the problems and try to save the unit. Ran away because they were cowards.
They walked away so that they could come back and shoot us and just be like, see, might makes right. Told ya.
Worse than Capellan. That's all I can say.
That's a...
You know, if we're talking about gameplays, changing gears just a tick here, my family, when right around the time when COVID hit and lockdown started a Gloomhaven campaign. And last weekend, we finished the final scenario in the main Gloomhaven campaign. So 2 years plus on 50-some, 3-ish hour scenarios with our 3 characters, and finally finished the main box campaign. So I'd say we got our $120 out of that.
Oh, congratulations! That's awesome. I think the only thing that I've got close to that is I'm about, we'll call it about 12 months into running the 5th edition Tomb of Annihilation module, which is built off the old Gary Gygax Tomb of Horrors. Players just hit level 10, and I'll leave it there so that I don't get into the weeds for anybody who hasn't played the campaign who might want to. Lot of fun.
My only D&D experience will get us away from our PG-13 rating, so I will take that away.
Yay!
Yeah, I remember you talking about that in the chat before, and it sounds horrible. So,
yeah, if anyone wants that story, the chat or beer is the only way to get it out of me.
I was going to say, is that a Patreon only reward?
Oh boy, so and it really deserves to stay there.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
As we peel away from hobby progress, we'll get one specific release out of the way before we get to the general releases that everybody's excited about.
We get there.
If you played...
We pause 1 second and notice that Jamie has arrived to attend our chatting tonight.
Jamie, welcome. Glad you're able to join us.
Sorry, I was running a little late. Been playing single parent for about a half a week and just get things caught up. Hobby-wise, I'm very happy. I'm very happy that my wife will be home tomorrow night. Let's just put it that way. Anyways, hobby-wise, I finished up the Dark Angel jet bike squad that I was working on last week. Weathering them and finished cleaning up the bases. They're tabletop ready to go.
Nice.
Congratulations.
And I guess I'll start cranking out tactical squads since can't go wrong with those. I've got plenty of them, stocked up, so I don't have to really wait for it.
I can't really I probably need to start on those after I finish this.
Yeah, core units make the world go round.
Well, the only thing I'm a little concerned about is if they're going. I guess the standard squad's still 10, but like the new boxes that are
we get there when we get there. Let me talk about the one specific release that you should even have a vested interest in. Forge World showed off Dark Angels Marduk Sedras.
Yeah, I saw. I was a little shocked that it wasn't Corswain, to be honest with you.
Why did I think we already got the model for Corswain? Am I stupid?
There's like general models that you could use for them, but there's not like a specific named character model for.
That is interesting and unfortunate, but here we are.
That's a cool model, though.
Yeah, I mean it is.
I think Marduk Sedras got a good model. Bar a few jokes about whatever's going on with the far end of his blade there.
That's his practice blade. If you ever watch golfing, when they put the big weights down at the end of the golf clubs, the weights, right? See,
man, I am really trying to not make the jokes. We could just.
Yeah, it's a little phallic.
Just the tip.
It's ribbed
just the tip.
Someone's something.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
PG-13. Let's move on.
Yep. Pretty much.
Yep.
It's a nice model.
Yes, it is a nice model. There's good details on there. I think, is this our only Terminator model that has grenades? Because I see those little Phosphex bombs, and in current rule set, you throw those like grenades.
Well, he's got special rules for his whole burnt, scorched earth policy with the Dreadwing. So that fits with him. But I think that you may be correct. Those are the only modeled on grenades on a Terminator that I can remember.
Typically, their hands are all like big and clunky, and they can't use grenades. But apparently, he's that important. He's that good.
Well, he's been around a little while. He's kind of figured out how to work everything, I guess you'd say. He's from Dark Angels on Earth when they were chilling with the Emperor, killing off the Thunder Warriors.
He plays lacrosse using that sword. The ridges on there, so he can hook them off of his belt and lob them forward.
Ooh, a man of many talents.
It opens like that sword from Soul Calibur.
Oh yeah, Ivy's whip blade.
See, we're PG.
Takes a village.
But from there, after we've put away the discussion about Marduk Sedras, we got our first big shots of what the big box is, what individual boxes are going to look like. The Kratos got showed off in all of its not being a Bigfoot photo glory. We got some weapon profiles for the Kratos. And of course, we do have, as mentioned, little bits of that packet to talk about that folks were getting to play a game with. So, we'll start with the models. Who is excited to see the Kratos?
Oh, yes, very much so.
There was quite some enthusiasm there.
I want one for my Blood Angels for sure, with the Volkite turret on it. I think it'll look really, really awesome in red with the big Volkite gun on top.
All right, yeah, I can see that.
Something about it that's just kind of, I don't know, it's not perfect to me. Like the Sikaran, in my opinion, is the perfect tank. I don't know what it is. I sit here painting 3 of them that are the size of my thumbnail, but it's the perfect tank. The Kratos looks a little too parts glued on where I could fit guns. A little bit.
Oh, with the 2 little pillboxes that would be indicative of the formerly one hull-mounted heavy bolter.
Yep. And obviously I can customize and convert and put something there for that. It's just for some reason those throw me off a lot.
All right, I got a bold question for you. Which do you prefer the look of, the Archetor or the Kratos?
The what?
The Archetor Bombard, the one that's got the spicular rocket system and the Gravflux Bombard on it.
Is that the one that looks like turned around backwards?
Yeah.
I thought it was
backwards
okay.
Karen.
I didn't like the missile one. I liked the Bombard one better.
Okay.
But not the Grav one. So the real ballistic weapon one. Yeah, I thought that one was good. I thought the other 2 were kind of pushing into the territory of over-the-top guns for gun's sake. So, I mean, and this probably comes from me liking the actual firearms a bit too much, but sometimes 40K goes a little over the top, especially with some of the other things that we saw come out this weekend. The Votan Necromundans were a bit for me. Their guns were a little too cartoony for me. And some of the Van Sar is as well. It's just a GW thing.
I really like the large caliber tank gun standard for that turret.
Isn't it
the battle cannon?
It's just a battle cannon, yeah.
Well,
I think it looks really good on there as opposed to all the other variants. But that doesn't mean I don't like the Choom cannon. I'm a fan of everything Volkite.
On the subject of that, I guess we can bring up what the battle cannon does and some of the other guns. So we do see they publish the battle cannon stats, or at least the tentative stats. I'd assume these are on track for a publication release, given how formally they were presented. So you do have a high explosive shell, 36-inch range, strength 8, AP 4, heavy 1, large blast with pinning. So already we can see some things going on in Heresy. We're keeping templates, but the battle cannon, which for as long as I have been in Games Workshop systems has always been an AP3 weapon, dropped to AP4.
It also dropped range.
Yep.
Which
it dropping range was maybe a little less surprising to me, if only because it is possibly mounted on a platform that's a little bit quicker than a Lehman Russ or a, what is it, the Malkador?
Yep.
Yep.
Malkador.
Yeah, so it might be on a quicker chassis, and Space Marines have always been willing to make that trade-off of speed relative to fixed longer range on some of their battle tanks anyway.
And there's 3 different shells that it can shoot as well, too.
Uh-huh.
So.
We do also have the AP shell, again, a 36-inch range, strength 8, AP 2, heavy 2 with Sunder. And then finally, we've got a Flashburn shell, which is a 24-inch range, strength 10, AP 1, heavy 1, ranged armor bane with Gets Hot. So specifically for those of you who aren't looking at this as I'm talking about it, this is armor bane parentheses range. We don't know the details on that. We don't know how armor bane ranged is going to shake out versus armor bane melee, but it's already interesting to see that we're starting to see the same way blast weapons are kind of bracketed, where you have the 3-inch blast, the 5-inch blast, and the 7-inch blast. We're starting to see that sort of syntax applied to some other weapons here.
Sounds very Dark Angel. That last shell.
That's definitely a tracer round and not white phosphor, because why would we ever shoot that? That would be terrible.
Ain't no crimes if it's war crimes.
Oh, that's so true.
We did find, also was published, along with the shots of the bit, or the turret modeled with it, the Melta Blast Gun, a 36-inch range, strength 8, AP 1, heavy 4, with Armor Bane Melta. Okay, so Melta is now a subset of Armor Bane. Presumably it's going to work the same as what it did, but we'll get into that a little bit more as we start talking about the packet. And finally, you've got the big choom, the Volkite Cardinal, a 45-inch range, strength 7, AP 5, heavy 12, with Deflagrate and pinning.
I think we're just starting to make up words now, because I don't recognize
All words are
them
made up.
anywhere.
Yeah, he's kind of got you there. All words are made up.
Well,
You
these
know
are all
what?
French, so it's less important.
Okay.
Would you feel better if the gun was just the Choominator?
I would call it the choom, and like the Volkite pistol, I would just call the choom. The Charger, I would call the choom. The Caliver, I'd call the choom, and we go from there.
I think
So
you just add
what-
more O's. So
Yeah, I
choom-
was going to say you've got Choom, which is the pistol, and you add an extra O each time the gun gets a little bigger.
You know, that works even better. Let's just go with that.
So,
Good
well, in
news,
addition to
gentlemen.
that-
The system works.
So in addition to all that, they also showed turret-mounted heavy bolter and Volkite option, in addition to the last cannons that were on the stock shot.
Yeah,
Sponson, not
the Sponson
stuff.
Volkite.
Or Sponson, yeah. Sorry, Sponson. And there's some sort of hull-mounted weapon above. It looks like above the tracks in the back where they've got a heavy bolter shown.
Yeah, those pillboxes I was referring to that previously are. If this is the level up of a Sakaran, that's where I said it's developed a second hull-mounted heavy bolter.
Which is interesting because it looks like it's going to have a side and rear firing arc.
Mm-hmm.
One would think. And then it's a pretty wicked looking dozer blade that comes on the model. I've got my
Yeah.
with the split ones from the from Cromlech, right? Which is
Those are gorgeous. I love those.
Yeah,
Yes.
but this is a really nice looking dozer blade for this type of tank as well. The
It's
model
the-
itself, like, forget rules. I personally think the model looks really, really cool, right? It's a bigger version of a Sakaran, and the Sakaran looks really cool. I'm really impressed with the model, and it sounds like the options that are going to come with it. So,
I don't even
And
think of that as a
it's
dozer blade. I think that's a cow catcher.
yeah.
It's like right off the front of a train.
It's a
I mean,
dozer's
it's-
bayonet.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the one off the Mark 1C Rhino chassis on steroids.
Yeah.
Like, it's like taking full juice and everything, and it's like ready just to churn.
yeah. But being an old school, I mean, I was talking with Duncan about this yesterday. I've built more Mark 1 Rhinos than any other Games Workshop tank, and that look is classic. I mean, I love that cow catcher dozer blade from that model, and so this being that on steroids is just fits for me.
I gotta agree. I really like that dozer. I didn't think I was going to, but and there's something about just the aesthetics of that tank where it looks somewhat like Sakaran, somewhat like an actual tank. That it's just, yeah, I like it. I'll buy at least 4.
Yeah, you can tell the difference where it's you go Sakaran, the Kratos, and then the next step up is the Fellblade, and you can see the different.
Yeah, I was going to say the turret reminds me a lot of the Fell.
Yeah,
Blade
the design
turret a lot.
language very much breathes between all three.
Speaking as someone who's assembling a Fell or doing the Fellblade stuff right now, yeah, it really does remind me of the Fellblade. And someone who has 10 Sakarans already painted and put together and assembled, ready for war in various different factions. Yeah, I love that. I really.
The very cool. One of the big cool things about like all the kits they announced, though, they're all plastic. So like this isn't like resin. You have to. I mean, if you want to convert it, it's probably going to be super easy to do.
Well, except Marduk Sedras.
Oh yeah, but that was
yeah. Speaking of plastic kits and tanks, we did also get the Deimos Rhino. Looks very, very nice.
Seems like a Rhino.
Looks like a Rhino. They do have the dozer blade in the kit, which previously the dozer blade was part of the Razorback sprue. They're giving you the Pental Heavy Bolter. The Pental Multi-Melta seems to be here to stay. You've got that Mark II crew member who's popping up out of the top hatch, just like you had on the Spartan. They also put the Havoc launcher in the kit, all of which definitely appreciate. You can also see, as you look closer, they changed the bit for the searchlight and the smoke launcher.
Yeah, that was the two big things that I noticed different were the smoke launcher, searchlight, and I think they said late in the reveal that they were pretty sure that the existing Forge World doors would fit on these.
They weren't 100% certain, but they thought so, and they're going to announce such sometime this week or next week.
Oh, that's going to be tragic if they didn't.
I mean, just looking at it, it looks. I mean,
should.
It should, unless it's the wrong size. But I mean, like the hinges look correct.
We all know, though, that those doors were literally different sizes every time you bought them.
Oh yeah, I've trust me,
100%.
Yeah, I've had to do a ton of work to get them to fit on them.
Yeah. So one of the things that I had read, so I cannot say with any certainty this is the case, but the people that they had on hand for the reveal stuff weren't people from the design studio, so they don't necessarily had all the answers for those things. I would hope that, and I would have assumed that the design studio has kind of plans for that, for using existing things to make sure it all fits, but yeah.
Well, they said they were going to do some updates this week on like the Warhammer community site for the doors on these and like upgrade type stuff, and then same thing with all like the special weapons and the heavy weapons.
They really need to clone the guy that's doing the Necromunda terrain so that it interfaces with every piece of terrain GW has released for the last 10 years and make him design tanks. That dude I love following him on Twitter. Owen Pattinson, every time he posts something on Twitter, it's literally like, well, just so you know, 2 Necromunda Zone Mortalis walls high is exactly the height of the new support piece for the Ash Wastes Ewok Tower. Village. Yeah. Well, if
dang.
And no supports high is exactly the height of a staircase, and this ladder fits here, and this thing goes there, and you're just like, I love that someone put the thought into that. It makes me not feel so bad about having a garage full of unbuilt plastic.
Well, it sounds almost like you've got like somebody who grew up with Legos, and he's like, oh, maybe all of my toys should fit together, and.
Right?
And he seems to have carried that sensibility with him his whole life, and he's just like, oh, I'm going to fix something one of these days.
I will say that with the terrain, GW has actually done a fairly decent job trying to keep the scale for everything consistent so that you can kit bash very easily.
Yep.
I can't really disagree there at all.
And I mean, I'm talking like from like, maybe not 10 years back, but probably like 8 years onward. It's all been fairly consistent.
I know that the Necromunda, when they re-released the 2017 Necromunda and the old Prometheum pipe set really blend together well. I've got my Necromunda table slash Promethean processing plant table, which was at Adepticon, has a combination of those and some other things built in, including some old school Necromunda terrain that I've rehabbed with plastic. But the how well the Necromunda stuff with the tanks and the Promethean pipe stuff fit together is really nice for sure.
Yeah, and the Sector Mechanicus stuff too, where it's exactly 2 ZM parts high.
Ooh,
And all,
yeah.
and those pipes are also the same height. So yeah, it's either that man is doing it himself and is secretly working inside GW to fix all the problems of the world, or someone came from on high and said we need to make our crap work better.
Like it's almost like they have a notebook that they write notes down at this. It's like they have standard, like it's got to be so many pipes, tall or whatever.
Not
Yeah,
possible.
some CAD drawing somewhere where there's actual inches inside someplace.
Yep.
I remember getting some of the old Forge World kits and thinking, do you guys own a ruler? Because none of this is straight. Every one of these panel lines is literally scribed differently. I remember the Barracuda has a misscribed panel line on one of the back tail sections that I had to fill and sand and then repaint over because it was so apparent.
It's war. Things get replaced when they get blown up. They don't always match.
Well, then why do all of the Barracudas in the world have the mismatching part?
The world may never know.
As someone who used to work in manufacturing, that doesn't surprise me at all. That things don't quite match up and there's going to be revisions, and those revisions don't always match what is already there.
That's part of the reason why I don't worry about gaps in tanks so much, right? How many times are tanks hit with shells and all that, shaken and repaired and put back together? There's going to be freaking gaps. The auto companies can't even make a car that doesn't have gaps in the panels when it comes out, right? You know, let alone
that's dirty to say that, Dan. That's
yeah,
so
but
dirty.
I worked in automotive where we put show cars together for, like the auto shows, and basically you take a car off the line and strip it down and Bondo the crap out of it and spend hours lining all the panel lines up and matching them because you never, ever, ever get a car off the line where the panel lines match, right?
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's dirty to admit that.
It's true. I mean, it's just the real world. So anyway, jumping back to releases and stuff.
Yeah, we also, so we got the announcement that Mark III and Mark IV are coming back in plastic. They're being reboxed for this edition. And both the 3, the 4, and the newly announced Mark VI all start at a 20-man squad box.
I'm scared of what that price is going to be.
I don't know what the price is going to be, and there's a chance that it could be astronomical, or there's a chance, and I don't want to say this too loudly for fear that somewhere Games Workshop is listening, for anyone who used to play Fantasy and also played 40K, I distinctly remember a time when I was buying Lizardmen, and you would get, I think it was 16 dudes. It's possible it was just 12, but I think it was 16. You got 4 sets of 4 models for about the same cost as what Games Workshop was also charging for a tactical squad box. Didn't matter if they were Lizardmen, Chaos Warriors, or Dwarves. Sure, prices could get a little fumbly between all of them, but the idea being that at a design level, someone knew and understood that if they wanted to see larger regiments on the table, you had to make some concessions to make that happen, both in pricing and in packaging. And that's also a way to signal to your customers, hey, this is kind of how we expect this thing to go. And it's possible, nay, probable, that that's part of the intention behind selling 20 model boxes, is that you are trying to signal to purchasers, cool, this will either do 2 10-man squads, but what you will probably find more use in is 1 squad
of 20.
Closer to 20 than to 10.
Well, I mean, we already know that they've adjusted the transport capacity values too on
They adjusted the Rhino to a 12, they put the Spartan to a 26.
Yeah. And I don't know if they've publicly stated it. I've heard the base, the play number, the Army point value number is they've been informed this is supposed to be right around 3,000 points.
And that's
Same thing.
that's possible. I've definitely heard that, but I don't think have seen that in print.
Yeah.
As we fork though on tactical squads and things like that, and before we get to that last little thing, I gotta jerk you around just a little bit more. We do have weaponry packs coming. Forge World seemingly will no longer be producing raids. And on the one hand, this means we're going to lose some of the cool stuff where, like, you had the backpacks that integrated with heavy weapons. And that's unfortunate to lose. But on the plus side, all 6 special weapon options, seemingly, Plasma Melt-A-Flamer, Yawn Holy Trinity of 40k, as well as
Chumi and Chumi.
Volkite Carbine and Volkite Rifle, and the Rotor Cannon. All 6 of those items, you get 10 of each of them in the same box. Neat.
So
I was explaining to somebody that, like, whatever the price tag comes out on here, there's a real chance for Games Workshop to win, because they sell more of them, because people will just buy whole boxes because, well, I need 10 more Meltaguns. There's also totally a chance here to get in good with the secondary market, and if somebody's like, oh, it's X amount of dollars for 60 guns, well, if I do the hard work of buying the kit and clipping all the bits and repacking and selling them either through my actual storefront or through eBay, and I sell them for between a 5 and 20% markup over the percentage of the kit that gun would normally cost, I can make a little extra money, but in the meantime, there can be a lot of happy players out there who are just like, yeah, sure, I'm paying a slight markup, but now I don't have a bucket of bits that I'm never going to use. Especially for players who, if the Rotor Cannon remains unchanged, they're just like, yep, never gonna play that.
Well, and it also, the fact that this is coming in plastic, I get everything at my local game store for $100. You get $10 back, right?
Yep.
So in theory, I'm getting a 10% discount on everything I buy from my local game store. And whether they'll have all this stuff in stock all the time, right? They never have every Games Workshop thing in stock all the time. They try. But they can order it within 2 or 3 weeks, and I can get it, and I can support my local game store, which is awesome. I wish I could have ordered Forge World to my local game store all the time, and I couldn't. And I get that 10% discount versus
100%.
Forge World you're buying at Forge World prices. So, there's besides just the numbers being right, having the options, the ability to repack and sell the individuals, etc. I mean, there's a lot of really good things about them going to plastic and coming in boxes and being able to be sold through all of the channels that you can buy regular Games Workshop stuff instead of Forge World. So that is awesome in my mind.
I'm sure you'll also end up seeing people like kind of setting trade groups up too, just because I have a bunch of Chumies and I want more Chumies, but I don't really need the flamers and somebody say like a Salamanders player wants a bunch of flamers. Well, can I have your cheese for my flamers, and swap them out? So,
or like I have a bunch of Mark III and Mark IV heads, and I'll trade them for Beaky heads all day long.
Yes, because that's a wonderful thing. I mean, I personally, as I said before, I have zero intention of ever using a Beaky in any of my forces unless I someday do Raven Guard, in which case, maybe. But I use all the regular, like the World Leaders have the World Leader heads, the Sons of Horus have the Sons of Horus heads, the Blood Angels have the Blood Angel heads, and all of them are the Forge World ones. And I don't use any of the regular heads from any of the regular sets except for my Iron Warriors because, they have their own aesthetic being as minimal as possible. But I just really want to see people trading the bits, trading the Mark II chest plates, trading the Mark III legs, trading the Mark IV arms and everything. I want to see that because it's going to make armies look less bog standard and more, hey, these guys have gone through war, so this guy's got shoulder pads from stuff he's scavenged off the battlefield. It's a Mark III. And despite him being in Mark 6, this guy's got a Mark 6 helmet despite him being in Iron Armor, or despite him being in Maximus, or what have you. Because it's just part of the whole building character towards your army to make it not just a showpiece army, but an actual thing that looks like it's on the battlefield,
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives it a lot more of a story in individual models or even individual units. Yeah.
That's
like
what
a lot.
heresy is all about. It's
It
the
is.
story. It's not just the whole, hey, rah, 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 beat face. It's the whole building the narrative that you want for your force.
Yes, agreed.
Just to make sure that we also do touch on the heavy weapon allocations. So, one kit comes with missile and heavy bolter. One comes with heavy flamer, multi-melta, and plasma cannon. And the final is las cannon, autocannon, and Volkite cannon.
Oh yeah, love my las cannons.
Very, I can't wait to see people put las cannons and autocannons on the table that, like, the barrels are actually straight.
Well,
I've
I've
heard.
most of my las cannon, because I've been playing with 5-man las cannon team since Heresy came out, just because I absolutely love the idea of it. It's pricey to field, but it grabs people's attention when you see 5 las cannons sitting in your backfield. But yeah, I love putting las cannons on as much stuff as I can. So side sponsons, troopers, whatever I can. I have a whole motto: live,
Now, I know-
las cannon.
I think they were saying with the last cannon, the missile launcher, because they sit on top of the shoulder, those are the ones that they were kind of iffy on if they're able to work with Mark V's.
Yeah, the plasma cannon bit appears to work the same way. It appears to be the old Rogue Trader style shoulder mount.
So they were a little iffy on that. They said they were going to try and release more information if they would actually work with their style boxes.
Yeah, although I will say that we did get to see pictures of Mark III and Mark IV plastics, Mark VI plastics, Mark III and Mark IV resin, and new Chaos Marines, new Primaris, and a lot of the fretting about the Mark VI going to be crazy bigger and the size of the Chaos Marines or the size of the Primaris is not correct. So they are looking to be definitely bigger than the
They
resin
was
stuff
a
and a
head
little bit
taller.
bigger than the plastic, but not unreasonably so, I don't think, from what I could tell.
Yeah, and
They're like about a
Yeah,
head.
they're not
half a head-
Primaris scale.
Yeah, they're like a head, half a head taller.
Yeah.
I really wish we would, and this is probably going out to GW. I really wish we would have seen that scale picture on the day. Literally, the first article they wrote was about Mark VI Peaky Marines. Why didn't we get that scale creep then? Because they know.
Because then everybody couldn't rage about it for the last 2 months and all the.
Yeah, but they know that that's that's one of the biggest complaints in the nerd fields.
I know.
Is the scale creep, and everyone's been talking about it for a long time. That just seems like a simple image to put out, because Mark VI were always the weird redheaded stepchild when it came to resin. Many of them wouldn't even fit in my old battle foam trays because they were so tall. They were a head taller, and they were running poses were stretched out more. I didn't use a lot of them back then because I was having trouble storing them before I switched to magnetic trays.
Well, and I mean, if we want to talk about things, there's still some stuff that I don't necessarily think. I wish they were doing a little bit differently, right? We still didn't get an exact timeline of when we're gonna see, right? So I think June was the best we got out of the release of the original rules and box set, and the rest of this stuff is probably then or right after, but I don't know that was confirmed.
That goes into another thing too about releases. Do we want to finish covering this, or do we want to go into that?
I'll say that the positive point about the nature of the release, it seems that there's no mini rulebook, for better or for worse. The big rulebook's getting packed in the starter. What shocked me was hearing that the starter, they are being very loud about the starter costing under $300. That to me says $299. Because if it was $249, they'd be making a bigger deal out of it. Either that, or they haven't set the retail price and they're waiting to see how content creators respond to this allegation of under $300.
But and I mean, let's face it. What's it come with? It comes with the new Spartan, which what's a Land Raider run right?
$78 or something like
80.
that.
So the Spartan's going to be at least that much, if not more, because it's bigger. We've got 5 cataphracti or 10?
10.
10 cats
10
and what is it? 60 beakies?
Yeah,
40
well,
beakies, 10 cats,
40.
2 praetors, a dread, and a Spartan.
Yeah.
And a
So
And a big Chalk Boy rule book too. It's like the full 300 plus page rule book.
So if we start adding things up, right? Cataphractii 60. The Spartan's going to be 80, say, or if not 90 to 100. The Contemptor now, the plastic one, is 40 or 50, right?
No, they tried to release that at 65 or 75, and nobody bid.
It's like $75.
The Land Raider is 85. I'm not immediately certain if they will be capable of pushing the Spartan over 100. That's not to say they won't try, but I'd be very surprised.
Yeah. But even so, then you add up all that stuff. You add two sets of 20 Bs, which, a realistic price is probably $75, right? Each, or more, right?
Their box of TAC Marines for that purpose is $50.
Yeah,
right.
Mark III, Mark IV are $50 for 10.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that they're able to run them at less than 100. But even if we use that as a 10 of them are 50, right? That's 40 guys are $200. The rule book, like you said, that's going to be a $60 or $70 rule book, right? All the templates and dice you just throw in for free. So that box set, if you want to look at what a retail value of buying that box set is, you're talking $550, $600, right?
Oh, and I'm not here saying that it's not a good value, and that even though they're indicating they intend for it to be part of the line, they really have tried to put messaging on point that this is not a limited release. This is not Indomitus where it's a tiered release or whatever. They want this to be available as part of the line. But I also think very strongly that there is no chance that they put that box, if they want it to be part of the line regularly, out there as a loss leader. I don't think they do that. And so that's where I'm wondering what the individual component costs will actually shake out to be.
I wonder if we're going to get cheaper beakies because, and this is one thing we did get confirmed, is they are monopose.
Wait.
Oh, they're press fits.
Yeah, they're that.
Yeah, okay, so we'll probably get press fits in the starter, and that'll be what it keeps the starter from just collapsing the secondary market.
And that's just the beakies, though. Everything else is going to be the full kit. Yeah. The other question, though, that comes with is, are beakies in general press fits, or is it just these beakies that are press fits?
40K's strategy has been to put out press fits as part of a bundle box, and then eventually to release a multi-part kit. And so that would be my expectation here, and that's where I said if they can produce those press fit beaks cheaper, then I would expect that's how they're pulling off this box price.
Yeah, and the other thing that makes me think too is because and this is obviously a little silly, but coming from us older gamers, but we have seen people complain that the Heresy models had too many parts if you're expected to field bulk units. And if we're looking at, and I'm just thinking about this from a GW point of view, trying to get more people in the game, you get more people in the game to build more stuff if it's less work. So
100%.
So wait, when did they announce these are? When did they announce that these are going to be press fit? Because the last thing we had heard,
I didn't say press, I said single pose. So they're not posable. So if you look at the one of the things that was displayed there was a squad of Ultramarines, and the sergeant that was leading them was one of the Mark VI that's looking slightly to the right, and they gave him a big Ultramarine breacher shield from the Forge World conversion set.
Right.
That head does not have the same neck seal that we're used to. That head is part of the torso. You can see it in that conversion. And you can see some of the other ways that these models are posed. I can go back and look through and see where the same bolter sling is used, the same pose, exact same pose, is used in these three spots. And then you see, once you start seeing that, then you can pick out multiple parts.
Yeah, it looks like there's 3 legs, 3 arm positions.
Yeah, and we had talked about all that on our previous show.
Yeah.
It's 4,
actually. I thought they had said...
Go ahead, Zach.
Sorry, I thought they had said previous... I thought it was in the previous Warcom announcement that they're multi-part.
They are multi-part.
They are.
But they're not. There's 3 of this leg set. There's 3 of this arm set. Each of them are different parts that you're going to put onto the model. It's not a single model you're building. You can mix and match the arm sets that carry it up here, or the arms that carry it down at the waist, or the arms that are putting it out forward, and put that with different leg sets and different heads and torsos. But from what people who have actually done some of the painting that they sent out to the some of the painters who received stuff to actually put into the Weekender said there are basically 3 sets of legs, 3 sets of head and torso, 3 sets of arms, and 3 sets of boulders.
I
Think
think
about right now. Find leg A to fit body A. Find
Bingo.
leg B to
Yeah.
fit body B. What you're used to is ball socket joints on the
Yep.
on the top of the crotch that fits into the torso, on the top of the head that fits into the
Yeah.
the torso. That's gone on the
So, like-
on the
Okay.
beak.
On these guys, maybe not on the actual Beaky when they come out in just a box of 20 Beakies, but at least on these guys, that's the way I look. And the fourth person that I mentioned is the quote unquote sergeant that can be used as a sergeant or just as another regular.
yep.
Okay.
And I
Yeah, because I wasn't seeing that, or I hadn't heard it, but I wasn't sure how that was going to work, especially with the new gun equipment boxes. If it was
Well,
going to
it's
be
probably
issue.
going to be
So-
shoulders with like arms for the, well, it looked like the hands were already attached. The
yes, that's
the special
exactly what I
weapon.
was about to say.
Yeah.
is-
Which is fine because that's how a lot of the current stuff for the Mark IVs and Mark IIIs work. So-
they are right hand attached to weapon, but yes.
Yeah, you're cutting off the right hand on the current set. So that what could be happening now is all you do is plug it in. Think of the old Space Crusade box where it's literally just plug plasma cannon into torso that happens to have 2 hands attached to it.
Okay.
I was
just
gonna
wondering with the
run a parallel to if any of you guys have put together like the clone kits for Star Wars Legion, where you can kinda fudge them to not all be the same pose, but without major cutting and resculpting, it's difficult to get radically different poses than what they mapped
gonna say-
out in the box.
Well,
I was going to say, if you stay GW wise, like the Skitarii are like that. You have like torso A and torso, arm set A and arm set and leg set B. They only fit so many different. It's limited without doing some like gap filling. Let's put it that way.
if you go to the Necromunda and the Blood Bowl, right there, you've got 12 Blood Bowl players, and there's 6 poses, and each one of them has 2 alternate heads that fit that pose, right? And 2, maybe a couple arms or maybe the same arms, right? And so it sounds like it's more along the lines of that precedent, right? And that's admittedly, I've not bought much since the original Necromunda release, but that's the way the original Necromunda stuff was as well, right? Where you've got 2 of each, 2 sets of sprues and the basic bodies. You're gonna have 2 guys exactly the same, and then there's options of what you can do with them from there.
Yeah, New Necromunda's got a lot more customizability, and not necessarily. You definitely have like torso A is torso A only, but then from there, usually the arms are broken up where any arm can go on torso A, any arm can go on torso B. But if you want like slung rifle pose, you need this specific body. If you want a rifle across body pose, you better be using arms set B. And it gets even weirder when you look at the expansion packs, where it's like you can combine both the parts off a sprue to make a squid creature, but if you only use one part, it's a snake. So it gets really weird with Necromunda.
And I was looking at the box set, which wasn't that, your weapons mostly fit on the initial body. So
It's
Real
not
quick-
all going to be quite the same as what the heresy modeling opportunities we are used, but it's
Oh,
also going to be more widely available, which means more people
Yeah.
looking at it, and at a game shop, more impulse purchase.
Right.
Well, and I'm going to say that, all of us have done crazy, I know for a fact, all of us have done crazy surgery on models and wild customization of models. So, the modelers are going to find a way to use them and do what they want to do with them one way or the other. And, so making it more accessible, but letting the crazy people still do their crazy things to hack things up and use 3
Yeah.
different bits on arm to put a weapon on a guy because it's the right weapon you want for this shoulder or whatever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so
Makes sense.
I don't find that being a big problem. The other thing that was announced before we move off of model releases is the Gygor and Ahriman, the models that were in the Prospero box set, have never been released separately. And I don't know how special or great those models are. But they are going to get their own special release and be available as individual models for sale.
Yeah,
They can't find them loose from the Prospero boxes still.
Oh yeah, and those were starting to get a little salty on the open market. So those are nice to see come back.
Yeah, and the more I think about it, even if the Mark 6s are more single pose, we still have access now to the Mark 3 and 4, so
Yeah,
it's
they're
not that big of a deal.
being re-released.
Yeah.
And
Was
like
one of
the
those-
rest of the box set is apparently like still like like the Cataphractii or still the old style ones, so they're fully posable. The new Contemptor is a lot better than the old monopose one we got before. So I mean, it's kind of like they giveth and they taketh.
So, yep. So
Yeah.
now that we've
Well,
gone through all of our reaction to that, do we want to change gears and talk about reactions and other things?
Yeah, that's
We still got one more thing to talk about as far as what we learned is that we get a loyalist book, we get a traitor book, and inside those books is everything you need to play any of those legions.
Yep.
And then
That's
what you don't get on release day, and we do not have a timetable for this, hopefully we will get one, is everything not Marines.
Yeah, a little disappointed in that, and especially without a time frame.
Yeah.
I get it, but it's a little sad. Although
I'm honestly curious about in that. Yeah, we're only getting the Marine stuff, but if you look at some of the Marines, there are some Marine characters who can take battle automata. Are we going to get rule those battle automata in the book? Nobody knows.
but
It depends. It depends. If everything is just kind of ported out and slightly modified from first edition Horus Heresy, anyone who has those original books should still, in theory, be able to run them.
well, there's an issue with that.
Oh, okay. See, I'm behind on the times.
Hey, you're okay. So the big thing that will kind of throw a wrench into things is that we have a movement stat now. Different models travel different speeds based on who and what they are, and not just the way that Heresy 1.0 did it, or Age of Darkness up to this point has done it, which would be based off 5th and 6th and 7th edition, where you're kind of put in 6-inch brackets based on your unit type. Units have a distinct and unique movement stat. That alone is a huge change to the game. Now, I think we talked a little bit about this earlier. I used to play fantasy. I have been asking for the movement stat definitely since 6th edition, slightly since 5th edition. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, second edition when I started had a movement stat way back yonder.
Yep, and it was 4, unless you were squats, in which case it was 3.
pretty sure Gene Stealers were.
Yeah, I think Gene Stealers was they were fast.
I never played Steelers. I always played Marines, Imp Guard, or what.
I used to play 90 Gene Stealers with a well, this wasn't second edition, but I'd use the 54 millimeter Gene Stealer as my hive time swarm. There's all the way it was off.
Oh my god!
Were those the Barrel of Monkeys Gene Stealers, where if you posed it just right, you could grab the front one and pull the whole unit front across the wall?
The only Gene Stealers I own are the original. Well, that's not true. I have a couple of metal ones.
So yes, they are the Barrel of Monkeys.
Yes. Mixed deployment easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask me how I
There it is.
And as we talk about this, we circle back to Dan's touch point. The game has changed such that players now have greater agency during their non-active turn. I think is the best way to look at that and talk about that. You have reactions now, and they're not just Overwatch. Our particular set of documents that we seem to have here don't give a full breakdown, but units appear to be able to make a choice, or at least players seem to be able to make a choice of having a unit do one of two things during each phase of the game. So the ones that we have here are for the movement phase to either advance or withdraw. When you advance, you move your initiative characteristic directly toward the enemy unit that has just finished its move. Or you can withdraw, where you move your movement... I'm sorry, no, not your movement value. Your initiative characteristic directly away. So, kind of two sides of the coin there. And then we also have in the shooting phase, we have an allusion to something else that's coming into the game. So, specifically, reactions in the shooting phase, it says, during the shooting phase, the reactive player may react when any enemy unit makes a shooting attack targeting a unit they control. Once the active player has resolved to hit, to wound, and armor saves have been made, but before any damage mitigation rolls are made or casualties removed, the reactive player may choose to expend one of their reactions to either return fire or evade. And we're going to skip return fire because evade. All models in the reacting unit gain Shrouded 5+ against wounds inflicted as part of this shooting attack. So that means you can wait, and similar to how Go to Ground is in current Heresy, you can see how badly you get shot and how many dudes suck it on armor save rolls, and then you can choose to shout, hit the deck, and get a 5-up against that in some capacity. Seeing Shrouded here also seems to suggest that some amount of how Stealth used to work and Shrouded used to work, and by used to work I mean work in the current game, is on track to change.
Well, and that's, I mean, it's not quite alternating turn phases, like a lot of modern games, but it gives, like you say, it gives a lot more player agency, a lot more ability to interact. You're not just letting someone else take their turn and then you're taking your turn. You get choices, and it gives a lot more general, generalship, I guess, leadership of your army, decisions to be made, and speculating here, and hopefully this doesn't touch too much on stuff that we don't know for sure, but it also gives the ability for specific armies to have customized reactions, and where people, oh, it's just Marines on Marines, and people who play know that Rite of Wars and gear and stuff change the way different legions play already, but it gives you another way to differentiate legions and make them play differently and have different styles on the game board with a reaction mechanic as well. So
Yeah. I'm very with you there, because the sheet that we have is identified as core reactions.
Yeah. So and that's that's awesome, right? I mean, not that it was bad in how the game played, but I mean, I've played 7, 8 editions, and other than the Overwatch in the olden days, when it was the one person's turn, the other person's just sitting there rolling saves and taking models off, and then you switch it back and forth. And so, like you said, the ability to make decisions to mitigate certain things, right? We don't know what evade. Does it talk about what happens if you evade? Does that change?
You get a 5-up Shrouded.
Yeah, but does it change what you're able to do next turn at all, or are you
Nope,
just jump back
not
to normal?
seemingly. Just to make sure, if the reacting unit already has a version of Shrouded, this does not stack or increase it. You cannot evade if you have a 0 movement characteristic or are an immobilized vehicle.
Yeah, so it says in the main rules, we don't know this yet because we haven't seen it. It could say if a unit reacted next turn, it is limited to doing X.
Yeah, but you think they would have included that in the playtest rules if that were the case?
Yeah, but we haven't seen the main rulebook playtest rules, the whole thing. We've seen parts of it, so I'm not saying it's definitely there, but it's something to think about, and that also could be something to think about as well. So let's say your Night Lords could have a thing that says if they do the fall forward reaction next turn, they get a +1 to attack if they charge. So that way they get +2 attacks if they reacted positive.
Or they can only do one and not the other, right? Certain units not evade, or or certain units.
The sheet. Good.
I'm just going to certain units get benefits. If they do evade, right, they're better at it, right? So they're going to get a 4-up instead of a 5-up or whatever the case may be. So.
Yep, and we do also see, or more to the point, we don't see the economy of these reactions. You guys kind of touched on it with saying we don't know how the unit gets to act in the turn after they react. We do see verbiage here that indicates use one of their reactions for the phase, referencing you as the controlling player, but we're not sure if the same unit
how many reactions you yourself get.
We don't know how many you get. We don't know how many times a single unit can react in one turn. And that's all part of this conversation that we just need a little bit more detail on.
And the one thing that I hope doesn't happen is, right, so I came back to 40K at the end of 7th, and the whole where you had to build your army a certain way because, otherwise you were at points deficits to everyone. What were the formations? I just hope that the one thing that I have trepidation about, or I hope that doesn't happen, is that the way reactions are doled out, it hamstrings you build lists a certain way and include certain models or certain units, because otherwise you don't have the same amount of reasons, right? And that is not done in a way that really limits or changes army building to the point where the ultra efficient builds to get the best reactions, and people are always going to be taking some combination of those. So that's the one thing that I do hope that is not the case in how that economy.
I really appreciated your cat jumping at you and attacking you at that very moment.
I
Yeah,
could
well,
see-
40K does something similar with their command point system. So.
Very true, very true. And we did see that system get overhauled between 8th and 9th edition. And so, pull a call back to earlier this episode when I made reference to the game Clank and then the Clank in Space spin-off. One would hope that the more a company iterates on its design choices, the more it's able to learn and incorporate what is and isn't working about those decisions.
Sure. And like you say, I certainly, I don't have any inside information, and I've not been reading any of the leaks to know how they're assigned or any of that kind of stuff, even if that stuff's been leaked or not. But it is the one thing that I worry about, is that lists become too, if you're playing Ultramarines, you're always going to have this, and this unit on a table because it's the best way to get the most reactions, and you're hamstrung in the battle if you don't have those sets of reactions. That's the
Agreed.
only worry I throw out there, right? I'm excited for it. I think the more player agency is great. The ability to switch armies up is great. Those are all good things that modernizes the game, makes the game more interactive. It gives you the ability to add, as an event runner, special reactions on special tables with certain terrain or in certain missions and scenarios, right? I mean, there's a lot of storytelling potential there as well that, it started going through my head as an event runner. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I just hope it's done in a way that it's pretty freeform.
So let me help a little bit on that. If you've read the new Necromunda that dropped this weekend, Ashway, a lot of people were really worried about when vehicles are interacting. One of the things that they did add on this is the specifics for what happens when you're standing on top of a vehicle and it moves. What happens when a piece of loot is stuck on top of a vehicle and it moves? What happens when you're forced to move and you corkscrew into a rock and things like that? So you've got a lot of specifics that a lot of people wouldn't have thought that, let's say, old GW would have thought of. That it seems that new GW, quote unquote, has seemed to be a little bit better on what they're thinking of in the environment. So it does give me a little more hope than maybe if we got Heresy 2.0 5-6 years ago when 8th or 9th edition hit. So yeah, I have a little more hope than I would have back then.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that necessarily, but with the whole reaction thing, what worries me is you have to pay attention during your opponent's movement phase and everything else. You can't just go on a snack run anymore. How are we going to eat during an event?
Take jerky with you.
Yeah, do you not just build extra space into your battle foam to keep as a cooler and keep a couple of cold ones in there? I have definitely never done that with my battle foam, is deliberately leave space for food and drink as part of it.
I've seen somebody that actually had a custom piece of foam cut that held one of those like little mini kegs. They were like,
have you not seen me coming to a table? I mean, I bring my foam and everything on a cart, because that way I have my foam, I have some food, I have a display table, and I have booze. That way I can hand it across to my opponent, and I'm like, here you go. I'm from Kentucky. This is the traditional greeting of my people. Have some alcohol.
Have this.
Yes,
I'm easier to tolerate with it.
Cart.
See, the problem I have is that I will be starting to play games, and then I'll start talking to someone in the middle of it about, new models or painting or whatever, and then I'll miss my chance to do reactions, and it'll just make me lose even more than I already do. So we'll be social instead of playing the games. But that's my own deficiency, and I just don't care about winning games as much as most people do. So I'm okay with that. But
Well, look, this is heresy. It's not competitive, hopefully, and it's not really currently a competitive environment. I mean, we're all the school of rule of cool, not rule of punch your face in.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure if you encounter someone on the table after you've just sat there and gone and gotten yourself a burger or a slice of pizza or a piece of whatever to have because you're hungry, you haven't had a chance to eat, or you've been talking to someone who's been complimenting your model and asking, knowing your opponent hopefully will not sit there and be like, "Well, no, I've already done that. You can't react now." Because if
Jamie
you encounter that guy, just say okay, and then never play him again.
Jamie remembers the first event we went to. Was playing 5th edition guard and wrote "Remember to do orders" up both of my arms, so that way whenever I would point to a model to shoot, I could read "Remember to do orders" and then stop myself and remember to give the blasted orders because it had to come before the shooting phase.
True, I remember that.
Yeah, I constantly forgot to use interlocking tactics with my Ultramarine. Like I'd shoot
Yep.
something and I'm like, oh no, I'm supposed to shoot with the other thing first.
It's kind of a callback to a game that I remember very, very fondly where I first met Zach. And he could not make a single solitary roll to go through terrain with tanks.
No.
I mean, you what was it? Immobilized 3 vehicles on turn 1,
Mhm.
and I was like, no,
Too late.
this is
Two
not for a
lighters and a
fun game.
Siren, yeah.
This is not for a fun game. Reroll those.
I still failed.
Yeah. Okay, that one I can't really agree on. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point. This isn't a competitive environment. Look, we're here to have fun. We're here to tell a story, have fun with heresy, which is a hobby we all are part of and we all love it. And that's what we want to impart to other people is to have fun, tell a story, and laugh after the end of the game with your opponent. If you're
Yep.
not able to laugh and have a good time with your opponent, just don't play that guy again.
fair enough. So I admit that I did not get as much of a chance to read the rule packet releases that they put out. Is there anything else we haven't touched on that was new and exciting out of those?
A weapon skill chart.
Yep, we saw a weapon skill chart. You now hit. So if the enemy is a higher weapon skill than you hit on 5s at best.
If you're a 4, you hit a
Mhm.
5. Weapon skill 5 or 6, you hit on 5s.
Yep.
That's interesting. Okay.
So
That-
weapon
that
skill
makes it
5
really-
makes a big difference.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Makes a big difference now.
Nice.
Have we seen the to wound chart yet?
To wound chart remains unchanged, so we didn't go the 40k style wound.
We also changed it on the bottom end. So if you're a weapon skill 8 or 9, so if you're Angron or whoever, and you're just mowing into solar rocks,
You're
you
allowed to
hit
hit
them
them
on
on 2s.
Ooh.
That's not a privilege reserved for Karn the Betrayer anymore.
yeah, you're able to sit there and walk your way through a squad of dudes now, rather than sit there and be like, oh, I have this really great beat stick who never rolled anything higher than a 2. Well, now if you roll everything higher than a 2, you're fine. If you roll nothing but 1s, you're still SOL.
Yeah. If you roll all 1s, you need to go buy new dice. I'm sorry.
Or take a hammer to him.
That's it.
I don't know how
one of
many
them.
times I've had to make 5 saves for suzerains and roll 4 ones, so that's
Brutal.
That's heresy.
I'll bring up the tactical squad stat line because there's a lot to unpack. Movement 7. Standard tactical marine is movement 7. For reference, we've got the Cataphracti sheet that they were using as part of this weekend's festivities. Cataphractis are down to movement 6. So having a movement stat letting you get a little more nuance there. Tactical marines are still weapons, ballistics 4, strength tough 4, single wound I4, 1 attack, lead 7, lead 8 with a sergeant. So marines took a leadership penalty, seemingly, of a single point, but that's a big single point. I think if you are lead 7, anytime you're rolling 2d6 with no mods, you should be expected to pass about 60% of the time. So lead 8 still puts you to, couldn't tell you the number off the top of my head, but it is still a meaningful bump. but it's not going to be quite as secure as the lead 8 rank and file 9 with the sergeant.
Which makes things like pinning a lot more useful.
Yes,
How many
absolutely.
That makes me think. Yeah, that makes me think morale in general is going to become a lot more important.
And that's especially interesting because we saw the Kratos with the Volkite gun got pinning.
Yep.
We also have to talk about here a unit type: Legionary Infantry, subtype Line. So we talked about how Armorbane had subtypes such as Ranged or Melta. We now see that Infantry can have subtypes like Line here. We don't immediately know what Line does, and the Sergeant, in addition to being Line, is also a character. But some of the other data sheets that we got also reference these different unit subtypes. And I think that this could be a very nice evolution of what we kind of got into the weeds a little bit with in Age of Darkness up to this point, where what are jump infantry? Are jump infantry, or are jump infantry a subtype of infantry? Because there were some units that referenced, like, preferred enemy infantry. Well, did that or didn't that apply to jump infantry? And this could be a way to really help start to tidy a lot of we also have reference to legionaries may take bayonets. When we get to the weapons sheet, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's interesting. Presumably they don't talk about the ability to buy close combat weapons or chainswords here because those bits simply aren't in this kit. But it's worth noting. Yeah. We've also, I think, before we talk about the Cataphracti squad, I think we've got one unit entry that's a little more interesting than the Cataphractis. The Dreadnought.
Yes, that's a complete and drastic change from everything before regarding Dread.
We may or may not have talked about it on this show before. I personally have never been really meaningfully bit by the Dreadnought bug. But I have known and met so many people at this point who are like, man, I wish Dreadnoughts were just monstrous creatures. Especially when some of the current Age of Darkness rules offhandedly refer to, like, oh yeah, this bonus doesn't apply to Dreadnoughts. And it's like, but Dreadnoughts are vehicles. How could it apply to them? Well, now that seems to be changing. So the Contemptor Dreadnought, as listed on this sheet, and I would say that even if individual options might change, I think a lot of this is probably pretty reliable. Contemptor Dreadnought's 175 points, still an elite's choice, movement 8, so apparently dying makes you faster. Weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 5, so it keeps those, and arguably weapon skill 5 is more important than it was previously. Strength tough 7, 5 wounds, I4, 3 attack space, lead 9, 2 up save. And it has a unit type of Dreadnought. Well, that's pretty neat.
Legion as Astartes Dreadnought or just Dreadnought?
Well, so they do still show rules listed as Legions Astartes and unit type Dreadnought. So where the Tactical Squad had the Legions Astartes special rule and then unit type Infantry sub-line, this is just unit type Dreadnought, still has the Legions Astartes special rule. So it seems like Dreadnoughts are back to the possible original vision of being more fully integrated with their lead.
One other thing
I like
want
it.
to reference
I like the change.
regarding the Tactical Squad, if we don't mind, is you actually see point values on the Tactical Squad, and it's 100 points.
Oh, that's correct. I didn't mention that. Yeah, Tactical Squad's down to 100 points. And we don't know what additional legionaries cost, but I would be very surprised if that nice round 100 points was changed in the production release. It's a little weird to me to see the sergeant tax that we have lived with for so long in Heresy go away, but it's possible that there's some system-level design changes that they're hoping just push people to take larger squads. We talked about that with getting just more models in the box in the first place. That may make it feel like they're less concerned about having to bake a sergeant tax in.
Were there any options given in that 100 points? like Vexilla?
Yeah. Nuncio Vox at 10 points, Vexilla at 10 points. Bayonets are free, which part of me wonders if they'll stay free on the production release or if they just did that because the new models have them as a built-in option and they want players to try them. Chain bayonets are 2 points per model. And then you've got the Sergeant, which in this case came default with a plasma pistol and power sword, could exchange for a power fist, lightning claw, or may take melta-bombs. And that's where I said, I'm not putting too much stock in the individual options.
No, but the points value for the actual squad reduction, I think, is actually a valid concern. You also might want to reference the Terminators and their stat line that we saw.
And this is probably where we're gonna get a little concerned. The Cataphractii Terminator squad is 250 points. Hold on. Before I go too much further there, the Dreadnought, the built-in armament that it came with at 175 points was the Gravis bolt cannon and a power fist with an inbuilt combi. 175 points, tough 7, 5 wounds, 2 up save. Does have an automatic deflector, which we'll circle back to. And then you've got the Cataphracties. 250 points, 4 dudes and a sergeant, move 6, weapons ballistics 4. Weapons 4 is a big it is a big deal now between Dreadnoughts and Terminators. Well, so they weren't weapons 5 in current edition. It's more pronounced that they aren't now.
True, but it shows in my mind the fact that before your Cataphractii or your regular Terminators were always seen as the elites of that group. They weren't just your bog standard line troops, which also is not in these guys' stat line.
Yep, and it seems to be that if they're going to talk about veterancy, they're going to offload some of that into either the actual Vet Squad, which we haven't seen, or like the Command Squad, which we haven't seen, but I find it very hard to believe that they're going to do away with the Command Squad. It's so entrenched in like the Marine design philosophy. The other thing is that they might use weapon skill 5 as kind of a carrot and stick to push you into Legion-specific choices.
Possible. There are 2 other changes to the leadership. Sorry, to the stat lines on these.
So, Cataphracties are 2 wounds apiece now. And this is just for the bog standard Cataphractii squad straight out of the big book. I4, 2 attack space, they got the leadership hit as well. So they're down to lead 7 base, lead 8 with the sergeant. So that also, especially when you see the Dreadnought at lead 9, furthers Duncan's point that these guys aren't as veteran as they used to be.
It seems to me almost in a way that this is kind of setting us up for Dreadnought, or sorry, not Dreadnought, but tactical Terminator squads and maybe veteran Terminators, if that makes sense.
Definitely a possibility. Or at least your Legion-specific Terminators, now that we're closer to each Legion having their own squad, that those could become your veteran Terminator. We do see that Cataphractii are infantry subtype heavy, and they have moved to relentless as part of their unit profile. They're also listed as bulky 2 on their unit profile. Thank goodness someone had the common sense to say that, well, bulky and extremely bulky and very bulky. No. Just bulky and a number in parentheses. That's all it's ever needed to be. It's so much easier this way. Big fan.
Can't disagree at all.
Well, yeah, especially because you've been playing Sons of Horus for a couple years now, and you're having to do calculus to figure out if you outnumber the enemy or not, same as Night Lords players.
I mean, yeah, it's nonsense.
Does the Contemptor have a bulky?
It does not. And we don't know if that's covered under the Dreadnought subtype. We don't know.
Because there are the few vehicles that can fit Dreadnoughts, right?
There has been,
drop pod, right?
but we're not sure how that's going to look going forward.
What can a Mastodon maybe? And
the super heavy transports, basically. The Mastodon and the Thunderhawk have been able to.
Yeah.
The Cataphractii squad for your 250 points gets you 10 tough 4 wounds, which in this configuration come with combi bolters, power fists, and then a power sword on the sergeant. We'll talk about what that means later, but the Cataphractii sergeant is allowed to exchange his power sword for a chain fist for 15 points in this document. So, if you took that chain fist, admittedly that'll give you a chain fist, again, things to talk about when we get to the weapon profile sheet, you are 265 points. You cost 90 more points than the Contemptor, and you are slower than the Contemptor. And I did some of the napkin math on this, and the Contemptor is generally more durable, and the only time that Cataphracties are going to come out ahead is when their volume of attacks to kind of scythe through a horde of something that you're not capable of sweeping advancing. And that kind of puts a second nail in the... Well, I shouldn't say puts a second nail. That complicates it further because Cataphracties already can't sweeping advance.
That is specifically spelled out for these guys in their armor rule.
Currently, yeah. I don't know if we got that as part of the War Gear page.
It is.
Okay, cool. So, speaking of which, the War Gear page. We have the Automantic Deflector, and this is really worth talking about as part of the Dreadnought. As printed, an Automantic Deflector confers a 5-up invulnerable save. A model with a deflector and a wounds characteristic that suffers an unsaved wound with the instant death special rule is not immediately removed as a casualty, but instead loses D3 wounds instead of the single wound for each unsaved instant death.
So no Praetors running up with Paragon blades and whacking them in the head and just putting down your entire Dreadnought.
Yep.
Well, I mean, 2 wounds could still do SIG, in theory.
Yes, that is potential.
You gotta be rolling good.
Mm-hmm. And since we're on this same page, we can talk about some of the melee weapon options that are here. The bayonet is a 2-handed strength +1 weapon. The chain bayonet is strength +1, 2-handed, and it gains shred. Neat little upgrade to see for tactical squads that you can now affix bayonets and charge someone and thunk somebody with a bunch of strength 5 hits. Neat.
So 2-handed gives you no extra close combat weapon, but does 2-handed also take away the extra attack on charge, or no? I don't know.
We can't be
No.
certain,
Well,
but we
we-
don't have a reason to believe that it will.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The Chain Fist we see is now a fixed strength of 10. Still AP2, it has melee armor bane, and it is still unwieldy. Neat. The Gravis Power Fist on the Dreadnought is Strength User, so I'm sorry, that will be only Strength 7. Okay, well never mind. This may not be as bad as I was afraid it was, conditionally, depending on how the Dreadnought Chain Fist works out. But the Gravis Power Fist is Strength User, AP2, Melee Specialist Weapon. Okay, yeah, never mind. If the Dreadnought can't instant death Terminators, that makes the conversation a lot more nuanced. I feel way less bad about that, depending on how the Dreadnought Chain Fist comes out. Continuing, the Lightning Claw remains completely unchanged. I sure wish they would have dropped the points cost on it, but this is the timeline we're living in. Meltabombs, Strength 8, AP1, melee with the detonation rule. It's unwieldy and it has armor bane. Detonation says, a weapon with this rule may only be used to attack vehicles, dreadnoughts, or automata, or any model with a movement characteristic of 0. And you only get to make a single attack with Meltabomb. No surprise.
That's for the squad or the individual model?
Individual model. We've only got the one who can buy it in what we've seen so far, and that's the Tactical Squad Sergeant.
Okay. I was just wondering if it said that, because if you have a Tactical Squad Sergeant and like a Praetor with both Meltabombs, I just want to make sure it's not...
It would be a weapon that you would each choose to use.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll talk about some other grenades here as we continue going through the weapon profiles here. The Paragon blade got a big chain. Strength +1, AP2, melee specialist weapon, murderous strike 5+. So instead of a 6 causing instant death, it now is on a 5. And we're starting to see some signs of Murderous Strike being a weapon property that can show up other places, and is now an adjustable weapon property, as it shows up in other places. The Power Axe remains unchanged, the Power Fist remains unchanged, and the Power Sword gained Rending 6+ this edition.
I really like that, because you
Yeah.
saw a lot of power blades or power swords in the fiction. You see a lot of power swords on model, but most of the time you don't really see them used on the tabletop because they're like a red-headed stepchild. I mean, they were only AP3, and you had no way to bump that to make them more effective against harder-hitting enemies. So taking, say, 2 power weapons in a veteran squad currently, it didn't make sense for any of them to be a power sword. And honestly, some of those power swords are gorgeous, and I love seeing them on models.
They're fantastic bits that have been used, but yes, not having any way to change your fate definitely put the Power Fist at the bottom of the heap relative to the mace or the axe.
I always had them in opinion. I always had them in there because they come stock on Lo-Kataris.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Storm Squad. Grenades. Frag grenades and grenade harnesses seem to work about the same, where as long as at least one model has frag grenades or a grenade harness, the whole unit gets to ignore the drop to Initiative 1 for charging through terrain. Pretty cool. Crack grenades got a huge change. Crack grenades now say, a unit that includes at least one model with crack grenades that is locked in combat or otherwise in base contact during the assault phase with a building, fortification, or immobilized vehicle may choose to have any models equipped with crack grenades inflict an automatic Strength 7 AP3 hit on the target instead of attacking. Really, really cool that if you can successfully immobilize a vehicle, crack grenade mosh pit, unless it's a Land Raider, actually seems like it could work.
I'd like to make a point out on something. It doesn't say in lieu of attack.
It does say any model in a unit that is chosen to inflict hits using crack grenades may not attack normally during the fight subphase.
Okay, that was what I was curious about. I did not actually spot that.
Yeah.
You are correct. It does not say in lieu of attack.
Yay!
And technically correct is the best kind of correct.
As for odds and ends, the Vexilla now, instead of its current iteration, which is reroll your leadership, Vexilla is now +1 wounds to calculate assault results. Nuncio Vox. While at least one model with a Nuncio Vox is present on the battlefield and not embarked, the controlling player may reroll any scatter as long as the model equipped with the Nuncio Vox has line of sight to the target.
Line of sight.
Mm-hmm. And you can't be embarked, so no sitting in a rhino calling in strike positions.
Even if it's open topped or has a firing point, it seems like you still box to a firing point, but that's...
You would like to think so, but get out of the car.
Gameplay at the expense of reality, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Searchlights. A vehicle equipped with searchlights ignores the -1 modifier to ballistic skill imposed by night fighting. So we know night fighting has changed and now seems to monkey with ballistic skill. Interesting.
That's very
interesting. Have to remember to use it now?
You won't have to remember to use it. Well, as long as you just remember what you do and don't hit on. Smoke launchers. Controlling player may trigger smoke launchers once a vehicle equipped has completed its movement, and may only trigger them if the vehicle has gone no faster than combat. Once triggered, the vehicle equipped counts as being obscured, regardless of terrain, until the start of the next turn. Any vehicle that has used smoke launchers may not shoot, except as part of a reaction in the same. Smoke launchers may only be used once per battle, and once triggered, may not be used further. And the flare shield appears unchanged.
Well, that smoke launcher change indicates a big change that I've been asking for years, which is vehicles being able to react. Because pintle-mounted weapons were designed from the point of view of the being able to defend themselves in an assault. So it's nice to finally see that mentality coming to the tabletop.
Yeah, I can't disagree there at all. That's wonderful.
And before we get onto the actual weapon profiles, I want to touch on the Spartan datasheet. 350 points, comes with the flare shield baked in. There is no option present for armored ceremony. There is no option present for dozer blades. It has a movement value of 12, ballistic skill 4, still box 14. It does make the jump to 6 hull points. Special rules: Legions Astartes, assault vehicle, power of the machine spirit. So now we've not only made it so that dreadnoughts are more tightly integrated with their legion, vehicles are too. Certainly interesting. We already talked about the change to capacity 26. Just interesting to see 6 hull points and built-in flare shield, but losing armored ceramite and dozer blades.
And that could be a permanent thing, or it could just be a for this event thing.
Yes. Although we do have some Melta weapons that have been present in this document, because the Dreadnought could take them. So,
Very true. Very true.
I mean,
and of course, as Jack referenced last episode, the ability to swap the front-mounted hull bolters with either twin heavy flamer or twin las cannon.
They actually showed the twin version of twin blast cannon. I had a good laugh at that.
Looks a little awkward, doesn't it?
Yes.
So, this brings us to weapon profiles. So, we'll just kind of run down the line here. We'll start with combi weapons, since those are pretty straightforward, and then we'll get into the others. Bolt guns seem to remain unchanged. 24-inch, strength 4, AP 5, rapid fire. Yay. I will note, as I say rapid fire here, the Praetor that was listed in this document, even though he was listed as Praetor with sword, was very clearly the Artificer Praetor. He had the Relentless special rule. Very interesting that we might be giving non-Terminator Marines Relentless. That is some old, what was that, 4th edition True Grit style stuff, where you could charge after rapid firing, but you didn't get the bonus attack.
That is definitely a throwback, and not an unwelcome one at all.
So the underslung weapon on combis, the combi flamer remains unchanged. Template weapon, strength 4, AP 5, assault 1, 1 shot. Melta gun, 12-inch, strength 8, AP 1, assault 1, armor bane sub Melta, 1 shot. Plasma gun, 24-inch, strength 7, AP 4. Rapid fire, rending sub 4+, gets hot, 1 shot.
That's something I actually thought that was kind of missing from the releases again, or the previous weekend, was
Talking
a box
about this?
weapon of, or a box set of combi weapons.
Yeah, definitely surprising that they're just we'll just leave Forge World to keep producing those, seemingly, for the time being. The plasma gun no longer being AP2 at the same time as Terminator's move to 2 wounds native is massive.
I don't like that at all.
I don't know if our listeners have experienced the same kind of shift in the metagame over the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years that some of us have experienced, where suddenly, almost all of us seem to have built at least one plasma-equipped squad in some capacity. Or our buddy Nick, who plays Chagorian Brotherhood White Scars, or at least has tried to. He bought some Predator Annihilators with the plasma cannon turret. Plasma no longer being too native, while Terminator's got a second one, is huge. Now, we did do the math. If you've got 10 dudes with plasma guns, or combi plasmas, even if they're BS4, even if there's no preferred enemy shenanigans or anything like that, 20 plasma shots kills a dreadnought pretty much exactly on. And it doesn't have to go, in your favor. The numbers should just kind of shake out that way, which is valuable. Definitely interesting, though.
I know it made me think I was getting ready to build a large dreadwing, and it's giving me some pause.
That's going to be a big pause. Just to wait and see how the texture of things develops.
Yep.
We'll continue, though. The Volkite Charger, secondary on a combi weapon, 15-inch range, strength 5, AP 5, assault 2, deflagrate, 1 shot. Somebody at Forge World forgot they made combi Volkites not 1 shot anymore. Well, back into the trash with them. And didn't they just only create the combi Volkite because they put out that event-only Cataphracti Praetor who had the Thunderhammer and the combi Volkite?
Yep. Yeah, that's the only place that's ever been modeled, apart from a few nice 3D modeling sites, and no one's ever had it like a default selection. It's always been just generically in the combi weapons section.
Yeah, and so it was after the production of that model that they're like, we guess the combi Volkite and the combi grenade launcher don't run out of ammo. Oh, okay.
Well, I guess they do now.
Yep. Run down the sheet, get a little bit of just what's out here. Archaeotech pistol, 12-inch range, strength 6, AP4. So they kicked the Archaeotech from being AP3 native. They did give it rending 3+, though, which arguably makes it probably better. Actually, okay, the Archaeotech pistol's probably better than the Plasma pistol, which is
I
cool.
don't even remember the last time I saw one of those on the table, to be honest.
Well, I think it's because only Praetors can take them. And, like, who's going to give up a sword hand to carry around an Archaeotech pistol that doesn't make you dual armed?
Also, didn't they have like a weird range?
They may have been a 9-inch range, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was like not a standard 612 type range, I thought.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Blast pistols are like that too, and they get hot.
I usually take Archaeotech pistols, but I never got into a spot where I got to actually use them. It was always a waste.
Bolt pistol remains unchanged. Combi bolter remains unchanged. Gravis autocannon, so this is the one that's on the Dreadnought. 48-inch, strength 7, AP4, heavy 3, rending 6+, twin link. I wonder if this is part of the reason why they didn't choose to put the carries in the new plastic kit, is because they gave this gun, even though it's only heavy 3, it is twin linked, it does have rending, and it gets +1 native base strength, in addition to getting 12 inches of range over the carries. Either way, if you need to pick at some rhinos, yeah, alright, there's worse guns in the game. Gravis bolt cannon. This is what comes on the Dreadnought native. 48-inch. Ooh, 48 inches is a bit of a buff. Strength 5, AP4, unchanged. Heavy 6, twin linked. Ooh. Gravis las cannon, 48-inch, strength 9, AP2, heavy 2, twin linked. They made the las cannon matter on the Dreadnought. It's
I will
2
say again.
shots.
Finally, we've needed
I will
that.
I will say again, I love las cannons. Live, laugh, las cannons.
I have tried so hard to love las cannons, and every time I do, they find a new and fantastic way to betray me. This might get me to at least, like, repeat that cycle of abuse all over again.
I hope it does, honestly.
You just want to see me get hurt.
Yes, I do. Constantly.
Gravis Melta Cannon, 36-inch range, 8-1, heavy 2, Armorbane Melta Twin Link. So remember how I said I might look at the Gravis las cannon? That was a lie.
Yeah, that added range.
You now gain Melta Rule, potentially. I don't know that we have Melta Rule explicitly stated. I'd be surprised if they changed it. You gain Melta Rule at 18 inches. Your 2 shots, you hit on 2+, and you're twin linked just in case your dice goes sideways.
Yeah, I'm still going to take the las cannon, though. Just because I have the range.
And that's cool. I like that there's at least a little bit of a complex question to have here. What's worth more to you? Strength 9, but you lose AP1? What's worth more to you? The extra 12 inches of range, but the chance at Armorbane?
Did they give the point totals?
They did. I'll be 1 second here. The Contemptor, the Melta Cannon is free, the Las Cannon is 20 points.
What does it say about Volkite?
It does not present with a Volkite weapon.
Considering all of my Contemptors have Volkite, really hurts me deep in someone else's soul.
Yeah, this is the problem with this box. I mean, it's great for playing it out of the box, but for people that are trying to think about what makes a full list. If you look at the new Necromunda rules as well, it's the same way. You only get options for things that are in the box. Even going so far as the Orlok Trikes in the Necromunda box don't have rules for replacing the crew because you can only buy the full trike to play the game with. So, we could be seeing missing options all over the place depending on how they've set this up.
Yeah, it's almost enough to make me worry, and then enough to make me not worry because I'm happy because more heresy.
Yeah. We've got the Graviton gun, which you can palm mount in the close combat weapon. 18-inch range, strength star, heavy 1, small blast, concussive 1. Okay, so concussive has changed. Interesting. Graviton, pulse, and haywire. And I don't think we have either of those rules listed. Subject of talking about Graviton, Pulse, and Haywire. It does appear that the vehicle damage table is unchanged. Still +1 for AP2, still +2 for AP1, and you still need a 7+ to explode your target.
Yay! That makes me happy.
Yep. We've got the Havoc Launcher, a 48-inch, Strength 5, AP5, twin-linked small blast. Okay. The Heavy Bolter, 36-inch, Strength 5, AP4, Heavy 4. Somebody found extra Heavy Bolter bullets.
That again, please? I didn't catch that for some.
Strength 5, AP4, Heavy 4.
You get an extra die.
You get an extra shot on Heavy Bolters now.
That's interesting. I really wonder what other weapons are going to have their profiles change from what we're all used to.
Yeah, and that's especially a big change, seeing that like the Kratos seems to come with 2 of them in those little pillboxes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Heavy Flamer remains unchanged. Strength 5 AP4 template. Hunter Killer Missile. Strength 8 AP3 unchanged. Las Cannon 9.2 Heavy 1 48-inch range unchanged. Las Cannon Array. So these come on the side of the Spartan. 48-inch. Strength 9 AP2 Heavy 4. Your Spartan is 8 Las Cannon shots. All just duct taped together with 26 dudes hauling them around.
With the option of
Glorious.
2 just for you know.
1 twin linked.
Okay, so yeah.
Can we pintle mount a last cannon on there as well? Because if so, I'm gonna laugh myself silly.
Sadly, no.
Dang it!
Heavy 4 is that's a big boy. That's a big boy gun.
Now let's just call it what it is. Heavy 8.
Yeah, yeah.
Tongas.
That means Spartan on Spartan warfare is going to be fatal real fast.
Well, yeah, as soon as you can get a flank shot on each other, because the flare shield remains unchanged, so...
Yeah.
But it did pick up 1 extra wound, though, too.
It did. Absolutely correct. And, seemingly, your vehicle can take evasive action to get a 5-up shrouded, allegedly.
That's. I don't think there's any reason to take a heavy support squad with 10 dudes with las cannons. Just throw a Spartan down instead.
Yep, you are not wrong.
Why not both?
Inside the Spartan, you mean?
Heavy support Spartan.
Oh my god.
Drive up,
1,000
open up.
points.
Here's the Yo Dog moment.
God, yeah, this is definitely a Yo-Dog moment.
Oh, hey, I did want to touch on something as I said a mostly complete truth. The vehicle damage chart is unchanged. What did change, though, is the strength of the explosion from a vehicle.
Ooh, now that's interesting. Is it different for outside and inside?
It is still the same for inside and out. It is strength 8 AP dash.
Oof.
Wait, what?
Strength 8 AP dash when you blow up a vehicle.
Goodbye,
For the guys around it.
Uh-huh. To both the guys inside and the guys around. So you gotta hope that Spartan doesn't get blowed up while you got 10 Terminators in there, because you'll lose 2 of them.
My. And that means that your rhinos are gonna pancake everybody around it when it gets blowed up.
Uh-huh. It is AP dash, but, like, you better not fail that armor save, Billy. We're kind
So
of...
now suicide rhinos is an idea. Charge them at the enemy, make them charge you, and just use it as a living bomb.
Uh-huh. We're getting closer to the 4th edition Screaming Metal Death Trap. We're not all the way there, but we're closer.
That's just horrifying, considering how many rhinos I have filled with screaming axemen.
Uh-huh. So we do have the Meltagun. The Meltagun is unchanged. The Multi-Melta, though, 24-inch, 8-1, Heavy 1, Armor Bane Melta, twin-linked. Multi-Meltas get twin-linked native.
Ooh.
Gone are the days of putting a pintle-mounted multi-melta on your rhino and just, like, rolling the die and being like, oh, that's a 1, that's no fun. You're just like, oh, and I'll do it again.
Now you have to be like Zach and roll that 1 twice.
Yeah.
Don't threaten him with a good time. Plasma Blaster is unchanged, 18-inch 7.4 Assault 2 with Rending 4+, and gets hot. And then the Plasma Pistol, which, man, you're going to have to make the Plasma Pistol a 5-point gun to get me to take it now. I'm real sorry. Unless, I also
can see that.
I do sincerely hope that they change Rending from what it is now, which says if you have a toughness value, I'm AP2. If you have an armor value, I get bonus D3 to my armor penetration. If they don't give Plasma the AP2 kick against vehicles, it's going to be real tough to justify using Plasma for anything other than just a volume of fire and just like going cow tipping against a Spartan with them.
Yeah.
I'd like to call your attention back to the tactical squad, where the generic sergeant's base armament is a plasma pistol and a power sword.
I think that's just for this box set, though.
That'd be nice, but we don't know that.
That is
It could
correct.
very well be that your generic sergeant is no longer a bolter, or is no longer a bolt pistol or bolter guy. He could now be Bobby with the sword and a plasma pistol, and it could give us all a reason to break out some of the hundreds of plasma pistols.
Yeah, but the problem with that is you're going to upset every grognard who has, like, veteran technical sergeant Timmy, who he's just like, nah, man, Timmy's the first model I ever painted. Timmy has played every game I've ever played of this game, and now you're telling me that Timmy can't get played anymore because he doesn't have a power sword and a plasma pistol? You're going to upset a lot of grognards.
Well, you can break Timmy and redo him.
We can go to the retirement home.
What did I just say?
Angry grognards. Speaking as someone who occasionally identifies as a grognard, I'm cool with it. I'll just build a new Timmy.
When do you not identify as a...
When I'm not speaking French.
Which is why he therefore put Volkite on all his dreadnoughts. That way, anytime he feels a dreadnought, gets a little grognardy.
Yep, I like to chew 'em.
So with what we got here, it's not everything, but it's a lot of interesting things. It's going to be a big edition change, gentlemen.
Yeah, the meta's going to change a lot on how armies are going to look.
I'll make note, we didn't see a profile for chainsword.
Correct. No chainsword, no chain axe. However, the inference I would make based on bayonet profiles is that chainswords are going to be a close combat weapon with shred.
Yeah,
It makes unfortunate sense. I'm wondering if a tactical squad, possibly in the upgrades, would get close combat weapon for, say, 2 points a model, or chainswords for 3 or 4 points.
Yeah.
Because that means I'm going to have to remodel every single tactical squad that's not my world eater, include their holstered chain weapon.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see how all the points totals shake out and what balance ends up looking like. But the implication that, yeah, Terminator's got 2 wounds, but they're not scoring anymore. But plasma doesn't hurt them quite as bad as it used to. But there's also dreadnoughts. So a mighty wind of change a-blowing.
Well, we all knew we were going to face the new changes in the new edition. We all
Yes.
knew that it was going to be entirely different from what we're used to in some ways, but also what we're used to in others. If we have to change playstyles, so we have to change army builds, if we have to change our basic understanding of how games function, that's fine. That's part of learning the new edition. It's just going to be a rather steep learning curve as we are learning it at the same time as new people coming in. And we don't want to, say, confuse the new people with us going, herp, derp, no, that doesn't matter. Plasma is AP2. Wait, no, it's not.
Yep. Well, this show ran a little bit longer than what I think, but we had a lot to talk about, and I think it's a good one. So, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure speaking with all of you. And as we sign off for this episode of the Accountability Buddies podcast, I've been Jacob.
Dan.
Duncan.
And John.
Zach. Jamie!
Yay!
And we'd like to thank you for listening.